Welcome to Citizens Forum on Sapiencia's channel. I would like to begin by saying happy independence to every Nigerian. You know, on October 1st, 2025, Nigeria marked 65 years as an independent country. I'd like to call today's edition of Citizens Forum independent but not free. You see, one cannot talk about Nigerian independence without talking about so many things. On Sapiencia Express, we've had a conversation about how this whole journey began from the British coming here in 1960. But then let's talk about the decolonization of Africa. We'll talk about the decolonization of Africa because it was really a process. It wasn't just a Nigerian thing. Yes, Nigeria gained independence in 1960, but you will understand this from the African context. Because from the 1950s to 1975, African countries were doing absolutely the same thing, wanting to gain independence from their colonial masters. And so the opening salvo was actually fired by Libya, that in 1951 gained independence from Italy. Sooner, in 1956, we started seeing other African countries, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, all begin to get independence. It came close to Nigeria in 1957 when Ghana gained independence. Guinea did same in 1958. So Nigeria was really getting examples from fellow African countries. And this independence journey spread across Africa. By 1977, 50 African countries had gained independence. And so the colonial master that was bent on raping the resources of Africa, of ensuring that Africa remains underdeveloped or undeveloped, third world country, did the colonial master actually leave us to become sovereign states like independence says? Or did the colonial master, or is the colonial master well and alive today? These are the kind of conversations Nigeria should be having in 2025. The problems we see today and the solution we marshal out to this problem, are we really playing a script that had been written before independence by the colonial masters who know that the only disadvantage they will have is the unification of Africa? As at 1960, during the time of independence, almost every founding father of all of these different countries were singing from the same book. They were singing the same song. If we are going to develop, if we are going to do well for our people, we must do one thing and one thing alone, and that is unite our economies. Even if we remain these territories, even if we respect these boundaries, because it's going to be difficult to disregard these boundaries, still function as one unit, which is the whole idea that led to the African Union, the ECOWAS, and the list goes on. To set the tone of the conversation for today of, yes, we're talking about Nigeria, but indeed Africa, answering that name of being independent, but really not being free. I'm going to allow us listen to PLO Lumumba. Professor Lumumba is the perfect person to set the tone for today's conversation, and so we are going to listen to PLO Lumumba talk about the decolonization of Africa, because we can be talking about independence if we don't really understand the process of decolonization. Of course, we understand colonization because that is where we got independence from. But then the decolonization process, how well is Africa doing that? Did we do the right things at the right time? Did we keep to what the template our founding fathers, those who really fought for independence, the templates they left for Africa and African leaders, African people, are we really following that template? How can we get back to that template? How are we deviating from that template? He's going to set the tone, and I'll be right back. My name is Jude Geoman, and I welcome you to today's edition of Citizens Forum.
And remind us that interference in Africa started with slavery. When slavery had lost its value, it graduated into colonization. And that is the context in which Berlin must be seen. When the European powers sat in Berlin and divided the continent of Africa into spheres of influence. When colonization had lost its luster through a combination of certain realities and agitation from the continent, we regained our independence. But as John Henry Clark, that great African-American, said, we regained independence by mimicking European governance systems. And he rightly says, no African country will ever succeed on the basis of those systems. After that, the neo-colonial project was instituted. And all of us will remember Kwame Nkrumah's book, Neo-Colonialism, the Last Stage of Imperialism. And he there says, the most dangerous. We are now in a neo-colonial stage when the European powers are at their most diabolical, when the Americans are at their most diabolical. And it's not lost on me that they'll be meeting in Hiroshima next week at the G7. And how do they interfere? They interfere militarily. They ensure that you in the military are trained in Sandhurst, are trained in West Point, so they affect your mind. They interfere diplomatically, sometimes through gunboat diplomacy, and that is why you see sometimes your typical European ambassador treats our heads of states in a condescending manner. They interfere through institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. They interfere by ensuring that our economic infrastructure is beholden to theirs. They interfere by influencing our processes, by lending us advisors who tell us what to do. The neo-colonial project is alive and well, and it is at its most dangerous, and we Africans must smell the coffee. If we don't, they are going to continue to interfere. How else do they interfere? Through NGOs, Danida, CEDA, UK Aid, USAID. These are Trojan horses that are introduced into our countries for the purpose of influencing our processes. And they infiltrate our institutions. Right now, if you look at the African Development Bank, look at the shareholding. It's Americans, it's Germans, it's Japanese, it's the French. And the Europeans have done their bit. They also interfere through post-colonial institutions, the Commonwealth of independent nations. They are not sovereign states, former French-speaking nations. These are the instruments that they interfere through. And how do we then deal with this situation? We Africans must now begin to recognize, and this was recognized as early as 1963, and the chair of the commission is here. They'll be celebrating 60 years in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And 60 years ago, on the 24th day of May, Kwame Nkrumah warned us. He said, if we are not united, they are going to interfere. They are going to interfere with our economy. They are going to interfere with our agriculture. They are going to interfere with our health. Our duty, and I hope that when African heads of states and government meet in Addis next week, it will not be another jamboree at which pro forma speeches are read. I hope it will be an occasion to give meaning to Africa Agenda 2063. I hope it will be an occasion to give meaning to Africa Continental Free Trade Area. I hope it will be an occasion to revitalize the Malabo Declaration, the Maputo Declaration, the Yamoussoukro Declaration. In other words, we Africans, as I conclude, we Africans must stop operating in silos. Rwanda alone will not confront them. Burundi alone will not confront them. But if we go through the regional bodies and ultimately the African Union, we may indeed succeed in putting away this bulwark. And remember, it is no longer just Europe. There is a new scramble for Africa. The Chinese are here. The Turks are here. The Qataris are here. All of them are coming back. And the military bases that you see here is telling you that if you don't behave, we are going to use force. Sometimes I wish, and I'm saying this seriously, that we too had a nuclear weapon, because that is what Europe and America understands. The impact of European and American and Russian and Chinese interference is a raw wound. It is not something that is in the past. It is something that is happening as we speak. And therefore, when we speak to it, we are speaking to it to warn ourselves of the reality. When we speak about the Danidas and the NGOs, these are bodies whose raison d'etre is to ensure that we remain in a perpetual state of begging. That is what we are doing to warn ourselves. And we are not for 1 minute saying that we will shut ourselves out from the rest of the world. What we are saying is that we must define how we engage with the whole world. And we are saying that as individual countries, we are weak, and the rest of the world wants to operate and to deal with us in our weak state. The United States of America are dealing with Rwanda on second-hand clothing. Rwanda cannot resist them. Burundi cannot. Kenya cannot. Uganda cannot. But if we are East Africa with a population of 300 million, we can. If we are SADC, we can. If we are ECOWAS, we can. So this is what we are saying. And we are saying further that going forward, we must also recognize our internal weaknesses. And what is our weaknesses? Chinua Achebe said it very well. The problem of Africa is simply and squarely one of political leadership. The rank of many political leaders in Africa are thieves. Let's call them by their name. They are thieves. They are individuals who are not interested in the interest of this country. And as long as we continue electing such individuals into positions of power across Africa, they are going to be manipulated. What then is the responsibility of the citizenry? The responsibility of the citizenry is to make demands. The chairman here, I hope he has received the several letters that I have written to him. I've written several letters to his organization, talking about the role of the African Union in peacemaking. I wrote to the chairman only last week about the situation in Sudan, saying we must solve our own problems. And I want to see a crusading African Union, so that it's not the Americans and the Saudi Arabians who are summoning them to Jeddah. It should be in Addis Ababa. In a nutshell, Joe, what I'm saying is that we have a responsibility to ourselves, both at the leadership level and at levels of the civic society. We must be engaged in a positive manner, and we must keep on shouting without being diplomatic, because diplomacy is lulling us into a false sense of security. And lastly, I want to say this. When foreign powers come, we must always be reminded of these goodies that they bring to us. It used to be said of the Trojan War that even when the Greeks bear a gift, they do not mean well. They never mean well. And the sooner we say it, recognizing the external threat, recognizing the domestic weaknesses, the safer we are. Right now, as I conclude, there is a group of experts going around East Africa, collecting views about the constitution of East Africa. I've just written to them this morning. They are leaving Kenya. If you ask 10 Kenyans, possibly only one knows they're in Kenya. Then they will be going to Burundi. If you ask your typical African about Africa Agenda 2063 out of 10, if 2 know about Africa Agenda 2063, you'll be lucky. If you ask them about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, 10, if 2 know, you'll be lucky. In other words, we are not doing well. And I'm going to be blunt at these functions. If you ask the chair of the African Union who funds the African Union, possibly 60% of the budget is externally funded. He who pays the piper calls the tune. That is the reality of the world. We must begin to pay for our own things in order to be understood and to be respected. In other words, Africa recognizes the need to define herself and to define her agenda. And I do not begrudge nations that define themselves and their agenda. Ronald Reagan once said it, and I agreed with him, that every nation does what is in her best interest. And I have no problem with that. The problem that we have is that at critical moments in African history, we have failed to seize the moment. You will remember in 1917 at the Champaran campaign, Mahatma Gandhi told Charlie Andrews, I do not want you to participate because at this point in time, the Indians must believe that they can do it themselves. In other words, there comes a time in the history of a nation when even friends of goodwill must be told, keep aside. We want to believe that we can do it, and your help must be surreptitious and subterranean if you are a person of goodwill. And the Champaran philosophy is what we must define for ourselves. In the year 2005, the former Prime Minister of Britain, Tony Blair, put together 17 individuals in what was then called Our Common Interest, the report on the African Commission. The Prime Minister, he was then the President of the European Union, from which Britain has now left, and he was also the President of the G8 at that time before the exclusion of Russia. They produced a report. Right now, when I see the Blair Institute moving around Africa, they are implementing exactly what was in that particular report, and I have a copy of it, not for the benefit of Africa, but for the benefit of the Institute. And what they have done is to sugarcoat it and camouflage it for the purpose of hoodwinking Africa and for the purposes of creating an environment which benefits foreign companies to the detriment of the continent of Africa. So that some of these engagements are anodinal. They simply lull us into a false sense of security. Do I blame them? No. That is why I agree that we must decolonize all learning. I don't know who said it, that if you have that the happiness of the slave is the comfort of the slave owner. And I am saying that if Africa does not recognize this, then Africa will never recognize and realize our potential. The saying goes that if you behave like grass, goats will eat you. And many times we in the African continent behave like grass, and we are fit for eating. And that is what I'm saying. Going forward in a strategic engagement such as this, it is incumbent upon the continent of Africa. And remember, I said there is a new scramble, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle. There was 1 month in this continent when the Russian foreign minister was here, the American foreign minister was here, the Chinese foreign minister was here, the French president was here, the Turkish president was here, within a period of 2 weeks. What were they looking for? What is in their best interest? They engaged little countries. They don't want to engage the East African community. They don't want to engage SADC. They don't want to engage ECOWAS because when they are big, they are not manipulable. And when on the 14th and 15th days of last year, the African heads of states and government were summoned, and I use the word summoned very deliberately, to Washington, D.C. After the president had spoken to them and given them photo ops, they were given, Africa was given 60 billion, 54 countries, 60 billion. And then the American president started engaging in bilateral agreements with Burundi, with Lesotho, with Kenya. That is what we are saying, that going forward we must be conscious. And as to training, our own Ngugi wa Thiong'o, in a book called The River Between, tells his lead character Wayaki, go unto him, learn what he has taught you, but bring it home and customize it for the benefit of our people. Learning is universal and defies geography, but there is wisdom in using that learning for our benefit. And very lastly, how do we distinguish the institutional conceptual West, which is diabolical, and the individual members of those countries that actually sometimes are on our side? Institutionalized conceptual West, as articulated through government, is fundamentally diabolical, their pretension to the contrary notwithstanding. And therefore, when we engage with them, we must have our guards up. We are capable, in my view, of discerning who is better, and that is the duty of our leadership. Our leadership doesn't do a good job out of it, and that is why the demand from the civil society, the demand from academia must remind leadership at all times, you are dealing, you are dining, and I'm using this as a term of art, that when you are dining with the devil, you must do so with a long spoon. Thank you.
Yes, very wonderful. Thank you, and kudos to Piolo Lumumba and other Pan-Africans who continue to speak to these very issues. Yes, October 1st, we talked about independence, and that conversation always happens in Nigeria. What do we have to celebrate? Should we celebrate? Is there anything worth celebrating? Are we better off in 2025 than we were in 1960? Those conversations went on, and those conversations should go on. But then how can one really understand the very core of the problem if we do not look at it from an African lens? And he said so many things, but just before I throw open the phone lines to really highlight some of these things, you see, I'll give an example with what he was talking about, regional cooperation and African leaders being summoned to the West simply for Western interest and not for African interest. We're going to look at how Nigeria today approaches the whole conversation around global warming. Wonderful thing that we should be talking about global warming. But while Nigeria is talking about global warming, and we blame the flooding in Anambra State, we blame the flooding in Delta State, we blame the flooding in Niger State, we blame the flooding in Kogi, and indeed every other state in Nigeria where we do see this flooding. We simply, with the wave of the hand, say, it's a global warming. We have never concentrated on that African solution that should be Nigeria having a sit-down meeting with our brothers up in the Sahel, with Cameroon, and simply marshalling out African solution and neighbors' solution to that problem. That should involve what we do to the dams. That should involve what kind of tree planting initiative we will have. You know, we don't do all of those. We simply key into the narrative of the West. Also talked about all of those donor agencies and those institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, who even those whom we elected to oversee our affairs, quote them when they talk about the economy, when they talk about how they are governing. They talk about what the World Bank has said about the administration, what the IMF has said about the administration. From when Babangida threw open the floodgates and received that loan from the IMF and that introduced SAP to Nigeria, successive governments have borrowed Nigeria into comatose. Today on Citizens Forum, let's really talk about decolonization. Yes, we talked about independence, but then let's really talk about decolonization and how that can become a reality, not just for Nigeria, but indeed for Africa. That idea that until Africa throws open its market, let's give another example with those who lead us, whether as state governors or even at the presidential level. Every time they talk about foreign investors, but the same people who talk about foreign investors are really deaf when manufacturers in Nigeria are calling attention to who have invested in their country. When Nigerians who have invested in their country, who are manufacturers in their country, are calling attention to their very many problems, from power to water to basic infrastructure to security to the economy that reduces the capacity of Nigerians to patronize them, to the quality of education in our schools where they are supposed to source their manpower, to multiple taxation, while at the state and the federal level, those who oversee our affairs are deaf to their cries for enabling environment to be created for them. Those who lead us are more comfortable every time traveling out of the country, saying they are going to seek foreign investors into the country. And talking about foreign investors, when those who lead us talk about foreign investors, they are not talking about foreign investors. They are not talking about going to Kenya, for instance, opening our market up to Kenya. They are not talking about opening our market up to Cameroon. They are not talking about opening our market up to Niger, to Burkina Faso, to Chad, to Mali, to Botswana, to Mozambique. That's not what our leaders talk about when they say foreign investment. When they say foreign investment and foreign investors, they're actually talking about these colonial powers and these multinationals owned by our colonial masters coming into choice sectors of our economy and continuing what exactly they were doing when they were our colonial masters. Same script, same everything. And same way our resources left the shores of Nigeria during the colonial times before independence 1960. Same way our raw materials left Nigeria without any value added. Same way we exported cocoa in the 30s and in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Same way we exported cocoa and imported chocolate. Same thing is happening today. Same way we export our timber, raw as it is, and then import everything from furniture to books to printing our voter paper in their country to printing our currency over there. Same thing is happening. Same thing is happening today. Same way we export cotton. Do we even export these things anymore? Same way we export cotton and then import finished clothing. The same thing is happening today. And so Nigeria, free since 1960, but yet independent in 1960, but yet to be free, is the conversation today. And once again, kudos to Professor Lumumba, for that wonderful, for really setting the tone for us in such a wonderful manner. The phone lines are open right now, 080-631-30020, and that is 080-631-30020 and 0903-594-777. And that is 0903-594-777. These are the numbers to call to participate in the program for today. Hello and welcome to the program.
Hello, Mr. Wale is on the line from office on the top.
All right. Welcome.
Yeah, let me contribute to your conversation.
All right, by all means, go ahead.
They are not think twice, and they are not think of tomorrow youth. They are believe in their own pocket and started to disease. Since 1965 till now, we cannot achieve anything little progress. Common sewing machine we cannot produce for this nation. Toothpick, they begin when them up to demand for borrowing. Nigeria go better. Let we stand and make our production be our own. Then say that we no go for foreign shoe, foreign something. But how many of them motorized Innocent or that man where they built car for Lagos. But other countries literally we they buy, but they go buy expensive car, or because of say they get opportunity to be in power. If they are not take careful, where the Nigeria go boss, if you know contain all of us, make them be very, very careful. Let them think very, very deep to make youth, build factories, let me produce, and anything that we produce, make we demand it like that. China start literally too. But now, everybody now, they praise China now. Why we begin say everything now foreign? When we want borrow money, those people when you borrow money, make them stop to they borrow us money. We don't need money. They're not the beggars. We are struggling. You see what we need in our factory. That is my own opinion.
All right. Thank you for calling in. Of course, those who borrow us will not stop borrowing us because that's how they have a hold over us. That's how they have access to our resources, both human and natural. Hello. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Hello, good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Yeah, the voice of Virginia France. I'm calling from Onisha.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Mr. Speaker, you see, the problem we are having in this whole Africa is that of, I will not only say that of leadership. This one is the followership. I think our followership have a problem.
Okay.
Because you look at towards the maybe during election time, you hear some people, okay, if you want a good leader, you should I think you go and get your idea, national voter card, so that you can elect the best leader that can lead the country. Most of them will say it doesn't matter. So, and again, during that election now, some of them now, they will now, because of what they will get, 1,000 naira or 2,000 naira, they will get. They will forget the suffering that they are going to go for almost 4 or 5 years. Yeah. You understand? They do away with it. They will not consider that. You understand? So, I think we, the followers, need to change our mindset. You understand? We have to change our mindset. And again, I think we need total organization. You understand? We need total organization. In fact, to raise us, so that to bring back up. Even though I know that those people that are doing this thing, they use poverty as a weapon. You understand? Because most they suppress don't have anything. Whatever they do, whatever the small amount of money. But we, I think we should have patience. Whenever they bring this money, you understand? You either you don't collect this money or you collect this money and vote your appointment. You understand? But most of the time you see they bring money and they use it to do what to make us do what you know what. And again, our youth are not having matters. We are calling ourselves the leaders of tomorrow, but we are not doing work. You look at somebody who is 80 years, doing 90 years, he will be the one that is controlling the youth, to tell the youth to even fight against their fellow youth. You understand? So all those things is what is affecting us. And again, talking about how you colonize our youth, I don't think it's very, very possible. Because number one, Africa, we don't have ammunition. We don't have all these ground to fight all these foreign bodies. So if you say that you are not going to be doing what they told you, do you think that okay, look at this stuff, this committee of Boko Haram people we are here. It's not because these people want to everywhere. When I was in for example, when I was in Niger Delta, anytime these people want to maybe like Shell, for example, when they want to take control of anything, they will cause problem in that community. And that problem, they different body will be fighting, and they will be reaping what the ground is from that. So other people, they don't want to be in our office. But the major problem is for us, because everybody that now our half of money for us, we have more money to Makali government. If person is using bad credit to you, don't allow that thing that he said about you. So we Africans, we need to change our mentality. That is my point. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Wonderful contribution. But then one thing I will not teach my children is that phrase, that tired phrase we use in Nigeria that says, collect the money and then vote your conscience. That does not work. That does not work. We saw what just happened in Cameroon. We encourage a narrative that at the end of the day destroys us, because we are creating an environment, just like we talk about creating an enabling environment for businesses to thrive and for peace to be and all of that. When we spread this narrative, we are creating a conducive environment for people to continue to sell their votes, and we see it is an all-time high in Nigeria. But then to that idea that a country or a people cannot stand up against their colonial masters and survive. Burkina Faso is a good example. It is always up to the adults and every generation at a particular time to decide for themselves what is best for them and then start actualizing it. China is another example. India is another example. For Africa, we are used to making so much excuse for ourselves, and as long as we continue to make these excuses, things like this continue to happen. Welcome to the program. Welcome. All right, welcome.
Geoman, let me tell you the truth. Do you know that the Western countries, they are aware that Africans are very strong, dreamy, and they can even work very stronger than them. That is the reason why they don't want ever Africa to be exposed. Yes. That is the reason why you see them allowing long-throat leaders, looters, criminals to be the president in different African countries. They will allow it, but they will say that this country is corrupt, this person is corrupt. But when the time of election comes, that person that they are
Mr. Chuka, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If there is to be an election in China or an election in America, and you are in a position of leadership in Nigeria, and then the candidates are shown to you, and then you are told this guy is a wonderful candidate, he's going to develop China more, he's going to develop America more, but when this person comes on board, Nigeria is going to have serious problems with our refinery, with our industries, with education and all of that. But then this other guy, he won't really govern their countries well. But the advantage this person has is that when this person gets into power, Nigeria can get what she wants. Our industries will work better, our this will work better, our education system will work better, our hospitals will get a lot of people coming to them from abroad. Which of them will you pick?
Of course, I will
Which of them will you pick to support?
The person will give the country the things that we need.
And so, because you answered this way, I just want to tell you that having a conversation and beginning by talking about the West and what they do is not really a wise one. They are going to continue doing what they do. The answer, the focus will be, what should we do differently? How do we ensure our leaders do differently?
See, the reason why I came with that opinion. You understand, whether we like it or we don't like it. We are part of the people that are promoting those guys that we don't want in our command. The Western country, they are part of it, whether we like it or not, whether open or secretly. They endorse them. That is the reason why I came up with that assumption, because me and you, we know who we want. And we are even, sometimes, just like in the election, we saw what happened. Now, who are we going to hold or blame? If we come out of the state, they will come up and maybe let us assume that we are afraid of it. That is why you are sitting back home, not to be gone down. No, there are so many places where we have this Western country, if they have interest, they will go with every pressure to make sure that that person that they want is there. If they don't go with the politics, maybe the better rule, they will go with the war. That is, I may not have enough time. The reason why I started that when like that is that the people you are standing corrupt, yes, you are giving the open place to come and invest in your country. That means they don't have that good mind to us.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chuka. Thank you. I really understand where you're coming from. Numbers to call still remain 08063130020, and that is 08063130020 and 0903594777. Yes, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Geoman.
Right.
Good morning.
Yeah, welcome, sir.
This is PC from Ukwela.
All right.
All right. I'm feeling that what you are doing is not what we need. You can't sanitize this country anymore. It is impossible. I am sorry to stand this way. Because they are floating themselves to Chartered House to take power from Buckingham Palace to come and rule us here. Their children, their wives, their allies are there, and they are here contesting and governing us. So I don't see how they can really want to sanitize this country, because they are ego.
Sorry. Did you run out of airtime? I would really like for you to call back to the program, because I really wanted to hear from you what you think I should be doing. But then if you are a believer in democracy, you should understand that I've chosen what to do. And this is what I've chosen because I'm convinced about what I'm doing. If you believe differently, do differently, and rally people to do whatever it is you think, because that's the beauty of a democracy. We all can think the same way, but then all of us should be allowed, and that freedom should be there. Of course, we are talking about freedom today. We are saying we have independence, but not yet freedom. Freedom simply means that you that called into the program, you are free to canvass your ideas, and without me coming to stop you, I'm also free to canvass mine. At the end of the day, we meet at the field, and whatever idea has more followers at the end of the day wins. I really want you to call back to the program. So I think you ran out of airtime. I'm really interested in knowing what you advocate to be the line of action right now. This is mine. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, welcome.
Good morning to you, Geoman.
Welcome to the program.
Honorable Deacon, I'm calling you from Onitsha.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I think we are gradually getting to it. I mean, getting the right person on board. We got it right in 2023 general election, and believe you me, come 2027, we are going to get it. Nigerians who got what they want, or who they voted for. Good thing that one of the national leaders of the National Union of Road Transport Workers in Lagos have been invited by the DSS for interrogations. He made a very nasty statement which they have been used to. Some of these lower modern, anybody that voted against the APC, that they will deal with it. I don't know if you have seen that video.
I've seen a lot of videos. I've also seen the one coming from the southeast where people also threaten others that if they come out to vote, they'll be killed. But I've also seen the one you're talking about, the NURT.
I'm talking about the most trending one.
Yeah, I'm just saying that idea is many of them in Nigeria do that.
And the one you also pointed out, did not even deter the people from voting. Now, what I'm looking at here is this. We need to double up what we did in 2023, irrespective of the threat coming from everywhere. This is democracy, and if we just bow down to it, most time people say our vote doesn't count. I don't believe that. If our vote doesn't count, no politician, a politician that cannot give you pipe-borne water, which you know can take about 3 to 5 million or 4 million to get a pipe-borne water, the politician will now spend billions sharing money from one polling unit to another. Our vote does count. So let's not be discouraged. For instance, we are looking at the Nigerian state. if you get the right person on board, bet you me, this country will be a safe haven for investors. And I also want to talk about, getting it right. I don't see any right-thinking government that will see, people that come to develop your state and, building your state for you. And all you could do to encourage them is to pull down their businesses because of one interest or the other, or because you don't want them to thrive. I don't see any right-thinking government that will do that, but it happened in Lagos. And in other places, some northern businesses we are pulled down in Lagos, many plazas we are pulled down. Is this the way that you attract investors? And one thing is certain, the people you are trying to pull down are the one holding the economy. You don't take it away from them. So instead of you supporting them, giving them the backups, all you are trying to do is to pull them down and thinking that you are going to, attract investors. So I think Nigerians must sit up wherever you are. Let's, get ready. Most times when people see us come on phone, they think that we don't have something else to do. We are just trying to enlighten and help our people out. Do the ones you can do. That voter's card in your hand can change a lot of things. Your vote may be the vote that will enthrone the right person into throne. And you are somewhere, whiling away your time for nothing. And at the end of the day, you say they did not use the road that leads to your market. Sometimes your container is coming back and it's peeled off and all the goose with the wet head. Okay? They do the right thing you're supposed to. Let's not be discouraged. Whatever the politicians are doing is trying to discourage the people not to come out to vote. Thereby they can buy the fuel and get back into there and continue what they have known for. So I think the right thing be done here. And let me also advocate that all the southeastern governors need to work as a bloc. The northern governors need to come out as a bloc. I almost envy the northern governors. You see them coming out when their interest is there. You see them coming out en masse, telling you that this is what they want in their region, and you see the government listening to them. Unlike their southeastern counterparts, they are neither here nor there. Okay, this issue we are talking about, you know that your people is the one holding the economy. What are you doing to support them? Go to African countries which you mentioned, Mozambique, Zambia, Ghana, mention it. Almost everywhere they are doing massively well. Then what will prevent this state governor to, do exactly what the state governor is doing? Make the environment conducive for our people to come down here and invest more. Bring, engage in security. If it is dialogue with whoever that is causing problems here. You see the northern governors, they come out, bring the bandits, they came out with their rifles and stuff, and they were dialoguing with the army chiefs. Are they not Nigerians? Are they different from us? What prevents this man that you cannot use your good office with all the allocations and with all the privilege you have to actually call your people together, get them on board? What is really happening? Let's fix the southeast. This place supposed to have surpassed where it is. If this is what our fathers did when they were given 20 pounds, will most of these governors be here? That is the question. If they were just sitting back and not thinking outside the box on how to move forward, some of these governors will not be here. And most of them who enjoy scholarship from communities, if it is not those who initiated them, can you become a professor today? So these are things they need to think, and let them not think that they can continue this way. It's a privilege that is given to them. They are no more brilliant than any other Umbrella or anybody from Enugu or Ebonyi. Okay? You are no more wiser or intelligent or more educated than them. But it's just time and chance that made you to be there. Then while you are there, why can't you set a good legacy? Why can't you, look at what His Excellency Tito B, Tony Moya, Baribe, the Deputy Speaker in the House of Reps, look at how that, talking to the President. What is happening to this? What the pulling down of these malls is not fair. Due process have not been followed. These are things that they need to work as a bloc and come out and issue a statement. Now, this one will be talking from the other way, another one talking a different thing. So I just want to say that for you to attract investors and get it right, the most important thing to do is to don't be discouraged about voting.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, voting has come to stay. Let's not be discouraged. And let you be 2027, this outgoing administration we are going to get it right and enthrone the right Muslim leadership. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you for calling in. Of course, my producer just let me know that it seems I can't entertain another call, so we can properly round up the program for today. You know, the whole conversation for today is about independence and really pointing out the fact that, hey, we are still a long way to freedom. You see, one cannot end this program without saying certain things, and that is, narratives go a long way. Narratives are not, when you allow certain narratives to fly, they take a life of their own, and the consequences are not as easy as those narratives sound. Just to say something about this, because I've always said that on this platform, I've always talked about the Southeast leaders coming together, working together, and how the Southeast leaders are very meek, cowardly when it comes to standing up to defend their own. But then what can you say when the Southeast leaders lead a very unique set of people who allow themselves to be so emotional sometimes that and take pride in the fact that they are not beholden to any leadership, that they make mistakes. And you see, in the Southeast has allowed a very wrong narrative that puts the Southeast in a box to try for so long that the leaders of the Southeast, understanding that is the narrative that flies around, simply neglect certain things. But the time has come for the people of the Southeast to act differently and demand differently from their leaders. Because if you don't act differently, you won't have the right to demand differently. But then talking about freedom, you see, we all have our different perspectives of how to solve the problem. What we all agree is there is a problem. There is a problem. And that problem affects everyone. Whatever people advocate for, and however they advocate for that, once it is within the realm of the law, let's allow that be. Citizens Forum will definitely be here, same time, same station, next week. My name is Jude Geoman. See you again next week.